Hey guys, so Season 5 of Halo Infinite had received a lot of praise since it dropped, and after playing through it over the last few days, I have to say that much of the praise is actually totally deserved. As you probably know, the game has struggled with content and other issues since it launched 2 years ago, but this update finally feels like the game has reached a point where even people who aren't necessarily fans of Halo can hop in and have a good time. And that's a great thing, since a year ago, the franchise's future felt up in the air since it didn't seem like Microsoft was showing Halo much attention. But with the release of Season 5, Phil Spencer showing up at the Halo Championship, and 343 hiring for positions related to Halo, things are looking better than they have in a long time. And with the latest additions to the game, like the new maps and customization options, you can see that 343 is learning from what they got wrong and are finally cleaning up some of their mistakes. But that being said, they made some new mistakes too, and we'll talk more about that in a second. Still, what you need to know is that the great things about Season 5 outnumber the things that aren't so great. And without a doubt, this update is the best season of the game by far. And I should know, since I spent more than 51 days in this game since it came out. But before we talk about my problems with it, let's talk about what's great about Season 5, starting with the addition of cross-core helmets. So since Infinite launched, helmets have been locked to individual cores, and that cuts your options for customization, since many of the game's best helmets, like War Master Mark 7 for example, were locked to just one armor. Now that all of them have been unlocked, you have way more possibilities to get creative. Like, I've wanted to use a soldier helmet on my Mark 7 for a long time, since that's what I used in Halo 5, but I didn't think it looked better than other helmets that came with that armor. But now I put it on the Eagle Strike armor and actually put it to use. Also, one major thing that held customization back over the last 4 seasons has been some armor coatings being locked to specific cores, which 343 has said would no longer be the case moving forward with the launch of Season 5. They even made some previous coatings like Bleach Bone, Wet Crow, and Threat Shift available on other cores. Again, we can always say this is how it should have been from the start, which is true, but the next best time other than that is right now. I also have to give props to 343 for their Flood-inspired cosmetics this season, which you can get both in the Battle Pass and the shop. They're pretty unique and sort of extreme compared to what we've gotten so far since launch, and honestly, I didn't see 343 doing this at all, and this might show they could be open to adding playable elites at some point. But outside of customization, the game's overall presentation is a lot better as well. I think the best way to put it is that it just has a vibe now. When launching the game, there's this cool sort of serene image, which is a change from the dark and gloomy backdrop we had in Season 4. Then when we get into the menus, we now have our Spartan and the weekly challenges visible, as well as an updated background image that was taken from one of the 2 new maps introduced this season. I also like how your Spartan will appear with the stance you set for them instead of standing with their hands on their waist like last season. And I think it's a nice touch that you can see your mythic effect when you switch between the main and multiplayer menus. And while all of this might not sound like much, changes like this help give the game a fresh feeling. As I mentioned before, 2 new maps arrived with Season 5, and both of them are beautiful and unique from each other. Forbidden is filled with a bunch of greenery and waterfalls. It's like something out of Tomb Raider or Uncharted. And let me tell you, this map might not seem like it, but it feels huge. There are a lot of different hiding points, which is great if you have a sniper rifle, but its size doesn't work as well in game modes like Strongholds, when it can take forever to run to an area if you respawn on the opposite side of the map. But my favorite of the 2 maps is Prism, which is based on the planet where the Needler was made. I've been having a good time running through the map's tunnels and bridges, and I have to admit I was a little distracted when first playing through it. It just looks that good. But I think the standout feature of this map is the exploding crystals that will send out homing needles in the direction of your enemies. And when it works in your favor, it's awesome. But the map also works well with the new extraction mode, which is sort of like a more dynamic version of King of the Hill. To explain it quickly, there's a neutral area where players have to run in and install a beacon, then defend it until a meter fills up, giving them a point. But if your team can't do that, the enemy team can then convert your beacon to their own and start the process over, and so on and so forth. So along with Extraction, Forge has also received an update to add in campaign AI, and people have been creating their own firefight matches in the customs lobby. To be honest, I've been having a blast playing this. It's just so fun teaming up with 10, 15, 25 people to take out enemies, and I can't wait for Firefight to come to matchmaking in the next few weeks. There's also been some updates to the weapons, like the new Bandit Rifle Evo, which is sort of similar to the Magnum in Halo 5, and has now replaced the Battle Rifle as a new starting weapon in Ranked. 343 also made the Mangler more powerful, so you can now take out an enemy with just 1 shot followed by a beatdown. And if you like to customize your weapons, there's also a new Flood variant of the Bulldog available in the Battle Pass, which I think looks pretty sick. Speaking of the Battle Pass, there have also been some positive changes with that as well. It now has 50 levels instead of 100 levels. And at first it might sound like you're getting less for your money, but 343 said they're trying to focus more on quality than quantity when it comes to items. And I have to say, I think they succeeded for the most part. It seemed like past Battle Passes just had a bunch of filler, like left and right shoulder pads being split between separate levels, which made no sense. Season 5's Battle Pass seems to be made up of mostly interesting things, like the unique Halloween-inspired items that help give the game more of that live service feel. But that's not to say that everything in the Battle Pass is a hit. There are a ton of things that I'm probably never going to use or look at again. But the Flood items to me are what makes it worthwhile, especially if you don't want to spend even more money in the shop. And that's a good segue into my issues with Season 5 and the game overall at this point. So to start with, prices in the shop are just way too much. And 343 is still bundling high valued items like the Halo 3 sniper rifle in high priced bundles instead of giving us the option to buy them individually. And that's not even mentioning that they raise the price of past bundles by 10 to 30% in some cases. Of course, you and I don't have to buy any of them, but when most of the customization in the game is offered through the store, it's just a bad look on 343 and takes away from some of the goodwill they've earned with their progress over the past few months. It's also massively disappointing that the Mark V armor from Halo CE is going to be in the shop. For something so iconic, it should have been free. I could see some longtime Halo fans who haven't touched Infinite in a while wanting to return to the game just because of that armor, and it just seems like a missed opportunity from 343. And while we knew this wouldn't happen because of the layoffs at the company, it's still disappointing that 343 couldn't continue the narrative story they had been building up over the last few seasons. Now, I wasn't its biggest fan by any means, and some people might not even care about it, but it definitely got cut off at its most interesting point. Also, while the UI looks better and I like that challenges are now visible from the main menu, why do they disappear when you select multiplayer? And why is there no option to see them again unless you back out? That's just bad design no matter how you look at it. But there are still some uglier problems that have not been addressed with Season 5. Though I've had fun playing Firefight in the customs lobby, I haven't been able to enjoy it as much because the browser constantly has trouble starting a game up. Instead, I just get hit with error notifications over and over again until I finally give up and leave. I've seen lobbies filled with 25 people or more disappear in moments because people got tired of waiting to see if the game would ever launch. With Infinite's player base shooting up for the first time in months thanks to the launch of Season 5, I'm sure a good chunk of those people were at least interested in trying the customs lobby, only to find it filled with bugs. A fix for this needs to be a top priority for 343. Also, it could just be me, but it seems like desync has gotten worse recently. There's been more than a few times over the last few days where direct gravity hammer swings on an enemy did nothing, not even a sound effect. If any of you guys have been experiencing the same thing with other weapons, leave me a comment. So even with those being said, Season 5 is a lot of fun, and there's still more to come, like Firefight King of the Hill being added to matchmaking, the Mountain Dew event in November, which will give us some remakes of Halo 3 maps and even a Mountain Dew themed level, which is crazy. The Combined Arms event is also starting on November 14th, followed by Winter Contingency 3 on December 19th, just in time for Christmas. So while Infinite may not be perfect right now, I really do think it's on the verge of earning its redemption, which easily might not have been the case if players or 343 had given up on it when it was at its lowest point. Alright guys, this is my first video on this channel, so if you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and let me know anything else you'd like me to dive into about Halo or gaming in the future. Until then, I'll catch you next time.